My name is Mr.Donkov, and in this video I'll be sharing my experience traveling with Piaggio Liberty 150cc scooter. This summer I made another trip with it, so I made this video to share some feedback on the scooter, how it performs, but also share the trip and some of the things I learned. 2 years ago I already made a review of this scooter. You can find the link below this video. But now I made over 10,000 kilometers with it, and I got to test it thoroughly and know it better. I also saw that the Piaggio just released a new Liberty model this year, but I think aside the cosmetics, the basic specification is still the same. So this video I think is still relevant, even though I have a previous model of Liberty. The Piaggio Liberty 150cc is basically intended for riding in the city, for urban areas, but I also like to use it as my adventure travel vehicle, especially during the warmer months of the year. Now my first part of the trip was going to Pula, Croatia. This trip started in the mid of July when I went from Ljubljana to Pula. We have a small weekend house near Pula and I had some things to fix there. So I would say this is like a medium range trip. I was just taking the local roads and avoiding the highways. This trip was about 210 kilometers, that's around 130 miles, and it took me about 6 hours with some pauses along the way. Technically, you can drive the Liberty 150 on the highways, but realistically it's a bit too small and slow and not very comfortable at higher speeds. So I would not recommend it, and I usually don't do it. I also think it can be a bit dangerous, especially if there's a lot of traffic, a lot of fast traffic on the highway. The Liberty goes up to 110 kilometers per hour in my measurements. This is about 65 miles per hour, but this is really pushing it to the limit. So for this reason, I usually just drive it on regional roads and avoid the highways. In the past, I tried and drove it in the highway also at almost maximum speed for about 45 minutes. It can definitely do it, but it doesn't give a very stable feeling and you can feel some strain on the engine. I saw it also uses a lot more fuel. In this case, I would say probably it uses like twice as much as fuel, so it's also not very economical and it could hurt the engine. The fuel capacity of the Piaggio Liberty 150cc is supposedly 6.5 liters. This is like 1.7 gallons. And in my experience, you can safely make about 200 kilometers with it, with one filling. Probably you could make up more, like 230. This is like 140 miles with one tank, if you're not too heavy and if you're driving economically. But realistically, I was pumping gas every 120 or 150 kilometers. And that's because I was not always sure where the gas stations were. So just to be on the safe side, as the gas light turned on, I was looking for a gas station, even if I knew that when the light turns on, there's still like 1/3 of the gas left in the tank, so usually more than enough. So I stayed in Pula, Croatia for about 10 days, and then I packed my things again and went forward toward the Dalmatia region. More specifically, my goal was the island of Hvar, and I wanted to ride along the coast on the so-called Adriatic Highway. Here you can see how I pack things on the scooter. I have a top box attached, which is quite big. It's, I think, 43 liters or something like that. In the top box I carry mostly my camping gear, a tent, tarp, inflatable sleeping mat, and I also carried my laptop and a solar panel and some other things. I was taking care that the box would not get too heavy, but it still kind of was. As far as I checked, I should not be carrying more than 10 kilos on the rear rack. I didn't weigh, but I think I carried more, maybe like 13 or 15 kilos. That's also because the box itself has some weight to it and it's not really light. The rear rack could carry more, but the problem is that having too much weight on the back could destabilize the front of the bike, especially on accelerations and cornering. So I think for this reason the limit is 10 kilos. Then I have a large 70-liter rucksack attached with two strong elastic belts. In here I mostly carry my clothes, shoes, toiletry, some smaller items, some food, water and things like that. Then at the sides I have attached two smaller waterproof bags, which are really intended for bicycles, but here I use it on a scooter. I have some shoes here, some sandals. Then I have to use clothes in here in this bag. So there are different types of clothes. I also have toiletries in this kind of bag with me. And some food in waterproof bag. And with me I also this time carry a keyboard. I hope it survived. I use it when working. It's much easier because when I connect to two monitors, this helps me. Every year I learn to pack less, but still it gets quite heavy. I would say it was probably around 25 kilos of the luggage. Then also my weight, which is about 75 kilos, and this is all together with the scooter over 200 kilos. But I can say that I didn't feel that the scooter would struggle to get around, except when maybe going uphill where the scooter could get a bit slow. And I also recommend carrying very much a solar charger. I have here one. I purchased a Decathlon. I think it's something like 15 or 19 watts, I'm not sure. But definitely, if you have sun, take this with you. You can charge your devices. In my instance, this time I have one 10,000 milliamp battery, and I have this smaller one 5,000 milliamp battery. This one usually charges my phone, which is not too big. One full charge and it charges quick. So yeah, if you have a lot of sun, maybe take two smaller ones. While you use one to charge your phone, you can already power up another one. But if you go somewhere where there is not so much sun or it's not predictable, maybe you take two larger ones so you can have like 4 chargers with you. One more thing I would definitely recommend to anyone who travels, especially if you travel alone, I would recommend that you get this kind of device. It's an alarm. Basically this is intended for bicycles more. How this works, you attach it to some object. For example, when I'm traveling, I'm using it like this. I put it here somewhere onto my bag, and when I go to a shop or something like that, when you need to leave your bike and your belongings like this, you have this key ring with some activation buttons. So I will lock this device now, and now if anyone starts to move something on your bag or starts to do whatever, this is gonna make a beep. Second one a bit more, then it's gonna give an alarm.
and you just close this by deactivating it like this. Right now I have it to a lowest setting, but it can be really loud, so I definitely recommend having a device like this. Also, when you go to a beach and you leave your stuff, your valuables in a rucksack or something like that, you can just add this device. If someone starts to touch it, you'll get an instant alarm. Yeah, so this is one of the things I would recommend if you travel, especially if you travel alone. It's gonna help you keep your belongings safe when you enter a shop. When you go to pay for gas or something, you just use this alarm instead.
The next stage of the trip, I traveled toward the island of Hvar, which is located in Dalmatia region of Croatia. Croatia has a lot of coast with more than 1,000 islands. They're mostly small, and across a large part of the coast there's a road called Jadranska Magistrala, which could also be translated to Adriatic Highway. The road was built during the 50s and 60s in the 20th century. It starts in Trieste, Italy, then goes through Slovenia, then Croatia, and finishes up in Montenegro. So it crosses 4 countries. It was a huge project which was also partly built by Yugoslavian army. But later, as new modern highways were built, most of the traffic transferred to the mainland and the Adriatic Highway is not as busy anymore. Which is great because it's a very scenic road, it has a lot of twists and turns, and many bikers come to ride here and enjoy the experience. I could definitely recommend this trip if you're located in Europe and you would like to experience something like this. This part of the trip took me 3 days. It was very hot. It was in the middle of summer, a heat wave. So I was making a lot of pauses. I took some swims on various beaches. But I also wanted to take the trip slow and just enjoy the ride. First night I slept a bit before the town Sen. I was sleeping in a camp in a tent. And then the second day I slept a bit ahead of the city Zadar, which is already deep in the Dalmatia region. This time I was sleeping at a friend's place who was staying nearby with his family. And as you can see from the videos, the scenery is very nice and most of the road is in good condition. For the daily driving distance, in my opinion, driving on the local roads, it's best to do around 250 kilometers a day, maybe up to 300. That would be about 190 miles. After that, I can say it gets a bit exhausting. It can be done, but in my experience, it gets tiring because you cannot travel very fast on local and regional roads. There's a lot of villages, cities, speed limits, and also slow traffic, which can be difficult to overtake. So making between 200 and 250 kilometers a day for me is a sweet spot if you're not in a hurry. In my opinion, the scooter drives best at speeds between 60 and 90 kilometers per hour. Above that, the driving is not as smooth and the engine can struggle a bit. But also realistically, you cannot travel much faster if you're using regular roads and if you want to experience the surroundings. When going uphill with the luggage, and if there is a strong headwind, which happened a few times, I saw that you cannot get past 60 kilometers per hour. This is around 37 miles. The engine is not powerful enough and this is something to consider. As I was riding, I also noticed a lot of bikers pass me by with their bigger, more powerful motorcycles. The Piaggio Liberty 150cc really cannot compare to those, they're much faster. But I think it also makes the riding more dangerous. At higher speeds there's less space for error. And I saw some bikers go really fast. And it can also take away from the trip if you want to be relaxed and also enjoy the surroundings. One more thing I can also mention in relation to bigger bikes, and it was funny because it happened a few times on the trip, that there were some motorcyclists with big serious bikes which were looking at my little scooter. They could see I traveled with it, and I saw they found it interesting that I travel like that. It was like a positive reaction, but partly that's also fun because I like to be a bit contra. I think that traveling with a scooter is just as fun, if not even better in some ways. It proves that you don't need a big, expensive bike to enjoy riding, to enjoy life, but you can also go on a trip with a small scooter, which is also much more economical. As far as overtaking is concerned, the Piaggio Liberty 150cc lacks some power and it can be difficult to overtake. This is not a problem when the vehicle is slow and the road is straight, but if the vehicle in front of you goes over 60 kilometers per hour, that's 40 miles, and if there are turns and twists, it can get difficult, so I often avoided overtaking for safety reasons. So I just had to learn also how to be patient. I noticed that as the engine got hot and I was riding for a while, the scooter gets less responsive and it lost some power. It was not a disaster, it still rides good, but it was not as snappy anymore. Maybe this is also some kind of electronic blockade, I don't know, because the engine is only air-cooled, and this is probably, maybe there's some limit, and because air-cool is not so effective as a water-cooled engine, especially on a hot day. And I would also like to share one more thing, and it happened while I was going toward Split, actually. I visited old friends of my dad. My dad passed away like 5 years ago now. And I went to visit his old friends and they were very happy. One of them never met me, my father's son. So it was quite an emotional feeling. You can see here some images of my dad and his friends in their youth in Castella, it's Castella Bay, that's near Split. There's 7 villages, which is now mostly just one city. And they had a very nice time there. It was like late 50s, early 60s of previous century. So I met some of his friends now. It was emotional bit for all of us, and it was a part of the highlight of the trip also. I spent the next month on the island of Hvar, where I drove only shorter distances. I went to beaches, nearby towns, and nothing more. And in this kind of environment, the Piaggio excels because the scooter is small and practical. You can park it anywhere. It's almost like a bicycle. You're also not so noticeable with the scooter, and you can blend into the environment easier and possibly even avoid some fines for parking and things like that. There is only one thing that bothers me a bit when riding on Hvar, that there is usually a lot of wind and it can blow quite strong. And this is one thing that I didn't like so much. But other than that, the island is very beautiful. It's the longest Croatian island. It's more than 70 kilometers in length, but it's not very wide, so it's a long island. At the end of my vacation, it was time to go back to Ljubljana. So I went on a ferry from Stari Grad toward Split. Split is a large town in Dalmatia region. And then I made a longer pause, not too far away from Split, because it was a very hot day. And only later in the afternoon I continued the trip toward Zadar, but this time not on the coast, but on the mainland. This time it happened that I did not go to an official camping site. It was already the end of August and they already shortened quite a bit, so I had maybe just 1 hour left before the nightfall, and I still had no clue where I would sleep. So I was checking Google Maps and tried to figure out where would be a good place, but I got a lesson this time. In the future, I want to be ready and packed on a place at least 1 or 2 hours before the night. This is not a problem if you go to some camping ground, but outside it can get a little bit stressful, at least for me. So this time I found some farm fields outside a nearby village and I set up my tent there. The sun was just going down and I staked my tent and the place looked safe. I was only hoping not to be found by some crazed farmer or some wild pigs or dogs or something like that during the night. But luckily there were no issues. The night was very peaceful, except in the middle of the night the wind started to blow quite hard and it woke me up, so till the morning I was mostly awake. Sometimes I sleep like that on the wild, but for me is the way to get out of my comfort zone, and I also challenge myself. I usually still found it a bit stressful to sleep outside, but I think that's also good if you want to grow as a person and experience new things. So sometimes I challenge myself like this. So the last day I started my trip back home early. It was around 7 in the morning. It was quite cloudy and even some rain started to fall, and a part of the Adriatic Highway was also closed off for campers and bikers, and this often happens in this time of year. And it was closed because of strong winds. So I could not go back by the sea, but I had to return through the mainland. But I can say that the mainland is also very nice and it's probably quicker than the windy road near the sea. The last day I made around 360 kilometers and it was quite exhausting, especially because the mainland is much colder and there was some rain, but I succeeded and I made it home safely. So yes, the Piaggio Liberty 150cc took the trip well, and now after 4 years and more than 11,000 kilometers, that's 7,000 miles with it, there were never any problems. But I do take care of the scooter and I do all the regular maintenance, I change oil, things like that, but still the scooter never let me down, and I can say it's a dependable machine. I hope you found the video useful in some way. If you did, please click like, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, I read them all. I wish you all the best, happy travels and bye.